a 5-foot high cinder block wall at the end of a cul-de-sac on Palma Vista Avenue into a mural with handprints from most of the neighborhood kids. Organized by the city's Neighborhood Improvement Committee and funded by Living Spring Church, the mural is an example of community pride in action, says Pastor John Rittenhouse. At this time, the mayor and city council would like to present Mike Davis and Curtis Gibson with a certificate and memento in recognition and appreciation of their service to the community of Garden Grove. The city thanks you a lot for your efforts in bringing out the best in our community. Congratulations.
So I have a couple things I'll come down and present, but before I do, I just wanted to say a couple words. Mainly just thank you guys, love you guys for what you did there. Volunteer work, they went and spent weeks and weeks going back to the site and painting a beautiful mural at the end of the cul-de-sac on Palma Vista. I don't know how long it is, but I mean, it's got to be 20, 30 feet wide by, the height of the wall. So a very large-scale mural that complemented our Neighborhood Improvement Committee effort to go in and help clean up that street and sort of reinvigorate the neighborhood there, planting trees and bringing in trash dumpsters for people to throw away any trash and debris. And I'm just having kind of a fun pop-up event there that day with our SWAT team out, letting people try on the gear and free barbecue and just all that stuff. So the event in of itself was great, and leaving behind a permanent public art piece was just icing on the cake. So I thank you guys for your efforts. I applaud you. I would love to see you guys do more. Maybe we can get you a paid gig next time. We've done some public art in town already. The Roots mural on the Gem Theater, some of the utility boxes that were painted by the Girl Scouts. We've done different things. We've done some temporary art installations, but the more art, the better. It's really dawned on me just how much of an impact it has on sense of community and creating a sense of place when you have public art. So this is a great addition to that neighborhood. Would like to see you guys and do more, and others do more all around town. Come back right here and we'll do a picture.
It's crazy.
I know, it's nice actually.
It's like the old days.
The shutter. The shutter.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Gibson. Kurt.
Thank you.
All right. Presentation number 2, introduction of John Montanchez as the newly appointed Community Services Director.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, if I could have John come up to the podium, please. I wanted to formally, we'll certainly have a reception for him, but I wanted to formally introduce John to the members of City Council and to the community, and just let everybody know that I appointed John as our Community Services Director. He's accepted the position. He started, his first day was on November 3rd. I had the pleasure of calling him on a Friday right before, knowing that he was a big Dodgers fan before the World Series started. I called him gave him the good news on Friday before the first game started because I didn't want him to be, he was going to be stressed out enough over the weekend over it. But I wanted to just let the community know that for the last 15 years, John has really worked diligently providing our community with excellent parks and recreation programs that sustain a very healthy and vigorous quality of life here in Garden Grove. He's an example of what hard work, dedication, and passion can do to get him to this point. John is going to oversee one of the largest departments in the city of Garden Grove that includes the operation of 17 parks, all of our rental facilities, the H. Louis Lake Senior Center, and the Garden Grove Community Foundation. So he's got a big job. John joined the city of Garden Grove in 2002 as an assistant community services supervisor, becoming community supervisor in 2010, and in 2014, he was appointed as the division manager for community services in the department. John holds a bachelor's degree in recreation administration from Cal State University, Dominguez Hills. He's an active 15-year member of the California Parks and Recreation Society, District 10, and he currently serves as president of that district. So he's representing us well statewide as well. He's also a 15-year member of the Southern California Municipal Athletic Federation, and I'm not sure why, but he still enjoys playing hockey from time to time. John, of course, fills the vacancy that was left from Kim Hoy when she retired from the city. So John is married, he has 2 children, and like I said, he spends a lot of time with his family. So I wanted to formally congratulate John on his appointment and introduce him to the council. And John, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to say to the council?
Sure. Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, and it is an honor to be appointed the Community Services Director. Mr. Manager, thank you for the vote of confidence in that. What started off 20 years ago as a part-time job at a park at City of Torrance turned into a pursuit of education and getting my degree in Parks and Recreation, but now has really blossomed into just a passion for serving the community, and it's something I'm excited about. Definitely, we have a great team that we have in the Community Services Department, and a great staff, and we really look forward to working with everybody and really continuing improving the quality of life here in Garden Grove. So I'm excited, and I look forward to working with all you guys. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Congrats, buddy. Okay, and with that, we will move on to oral communications. I have several cards, starting with Charles Mitchell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and staff. Last Saturday was Veterans Day. If you were going about the city, you may have noticed people standing in front of theaters or stores selling paper poppies and wondering what the significance was of those paper poppies. In World War I, many of the soldiers were buried in a place called Flanders Field. There was a poem written about it. Poppies grow row by row in Flanders Field. Those poppies are sold to generate funds for various veterans organizations. And although Veterans Day today commemorates veterans from all of our past conflicts, the original day was based on the day that the surrender was signed. That was on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And that date has become, it was Memorial Day, now it's been changed to Veterans Day. And it's the day that we honor all of those who have served our country. But next week, we will sit down with our families and enjoy a big dinner, I hope, turkey and all the dressings. And before we start devouring everything on the table, I hope that we all will stop and give thanks for the blessings we have in this country and say a prayer for our veterans. Thank you.
Bob Donaldson.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. I just come to talk just a little bit about the next meeting, really, because we're going to have the STRs on the agenda, so that we can hopefully have some more discussions with our neighbors. And it's important, because we want to get it, you want to nip this in the bud before it gets way out of hand, because it's starting to get out of hand over by us, because we're real close to Disneyland. And they keep popping up, and they don't seem to care about the fact that they're illegal in the city of Garden Grove. Same thing with Orange. You call Orange, they say STRs are forbidden there. Well, they have them there. You call Huntington Beach, they're forbidden there. But they are a cancer to us, because they take away, rooms from the hotels, and hotels are governed by, they have jobs. They pay a lot of money to the city through their TLTs, and these people are just getting a free ride. And I don't advocate us go and say we want their TLT money, because they're like mini motels, and some are bigger than others. But I want to make sure that residents are aware that when this starts coming up for discussions, you get a lot of lies that come forward. Like they misrepresented it in the city of Santa Ana, because they talk about where somebody is sharing, like they rent a room in their house for all year. Well, that's not a short-term rental by any means. It's definitely, but what they had is, they had like 2 speakers, and they only had 2 speakers when they did the STR in Santa Ana. And they brought up that because they thought they were going to lose that. And that had nothing to do with that. The same thing, whether I want to rent a house or not, it doesn't take away any of those rights. It's just this mass turnover that you see that affects, the things are dirty, because you see, especially after big conventions like just happened, there was a lot of people here. You see a lot of dirt and trash. People leave all their stuff, like in the gutters and stuff. And it's just not healthy for the city. And also, like I say, you see a lot of, and we've seen it in Anaheim a lot of drugs and alcohol use. And that's just not good. Neighborhoods are for kids. That's where you want your kids to grow up, where your grandkids want to grow up. We don't need them seeing like a party that you would see at a hotel. They do this, and it gets out of control. And I think I mentioned here just a few weeks ago, there was a bust in Sherwood Village. They were running prostitution out of one of the STRs. And that's sick. But people, because when they rent these things, they have no idea what goes on when they rent it. And also, like when we just did one like a couple nights ago on Expedita or whatever it is on. But you bring up Anaheim and pops up, here's Garden Grove, an STR. They're doing a short-term rental. It's over by us. We didn't track down the show exactly because, when you have a hard time tracking these people down because they don't give the addresses when they show it. When you book it, you get the address, of course, but they keep it hidden. But there's got to be something that the city can do to find these people because they're running a business in their homes, and they're making money. And a lot of them make a lot of money because the reason I say they make a lot of money because you have people like over in Anaheim, I think one person owns 30 of them. We got one in our complex that owns 10. So, they're making $300 a night, and that hurts your apartments too. It raises the rent because they're going to choose, if they have the choice, if they can do that, making, $6,000 here versus $2,000 here, well, guess what? You just lost a rental. for somebody that might be working in the city of Garden Grove or in the county of Orange. So I'm just hoping that people will come out and at least hear, because I like the idea that it's restricted. And I don't think that we want, STRs coming in, because I think they're a cancer to neighborhoods. And I take it serious. That's why I keep coming here. We don't want them to get a foothold over in ours, because I happen to live in Sherwood Village now, but I own the house on Robert Lane, which is like a 2/3 of a mile, and that's where my daughter and kids are, grandkids. And I just don't want to see all that stuff, because luckily Anaheim's going to have an end sometime. Unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be August of 2019. But thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, sir. Gail Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor Jones and City Council, men and women, and staff. I am Gail Taylor. I'm the Interim Executive Director of the Cypress College Foundation, and I'm here to talk about our 43rd Annual Americana Awards. And I know we do this every year, but we want to come here and talk about the event and introduce you to the honoree from your city. Currently, we have 966 students from Garden Grove enrolled at Cypress College, and we hold Americana not only to raise money for our college, our students, for scholarships, and for our staff, but so that we can honor outstanding citizens from the communities we serve. This year's event is on Saturday, February 10th, in the Grand Ballroom of the Disneyland Hotel, and proceeds from that do go to scholarships and to our staff. Our honoree this year from your lovely city is Sister Brid O'Shea, who's sitting right here. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Brid. Come on, come on up. She has worked in Garden Grove for over 35 years and has served the community in many ways. And you probably all know her, and you've probably heard all this, but I have the pleasure of meeting her recently and getting to talk a little bit about her. She has been principal at St. Columban Catholic Church School, for more than 12 years and is now the chaplain. She has led the RCIA program, and I know she told me what that stands for, but I don't recall at the moment, which fosters conversion to the faith, and she's been doing that for over 15 years. She, a while back, returned to school to get the training she needed to open a Montessori school at St. Columban. Her love and respect of others led her to the opening of the White House at Nelson and Stanford, a place where the homeless receive clothing, a meal, shower, books, computer access, haircuts, and everyday essentials. And I don't know if you've been there, but I have, and it's an amazing place. And I got to meet a few of her clients, and that was even more amazing. People like us who just had bad luck one day. And anyway, her efforts are to give dignity to those who need it most. So we're very pleased to be honored to be able to honor her. And also with us tonight, our last year's honoree, Rick Lerma, and his lovely wife, Susan, who now serves on our Americana committee. So we're glad. Thank you. We're asking Garden Grove to consider sponsoring a table this year at either the founders or the benefactors level. And I know our tables are not cheap, but several cities have stepped up to the plate, some of your neighbors. Tables are $5,000 and $3,000, and I know it's easy to think that's a lot of money. But if you purchased a founder's table for $5,000, you'd be spending $5.17 per each Garden Grove student at the college. And if you purchased a benefactor table for $3,000, you'd be spending $3.10 per each student from Garden Grove. We've given you an ad in our program every year, 2 pages. This was your ad last year, in case you haven't seen it. And I wish I could remember with whom I worked last year, but I'm going to leave this, and perhaps whoever did this could do one again. And the dates and everything will be on the invitations when you get those, the deadline and all of that. Anyway, if you'd like to contribute some a basket, maybe a dinner with the mayor, or lunch with the police chief, or a ride in a fire truck, or something. Those are just some of the ideas that we'd like to offer to you to help us raise money, again, for our students and our staff. And you'll be getting a letter soon from Dave Shaver, who's the mayor pro tem of Stanton, longtime member of our board and happens to be our board president at the time. And I've never met Stephen, but he's an alum of Cypress College, and fun to get to see you. Raul has told me about you many times. So again, thank you all for your time, and I hope I see you on February 10th. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes oral communications. We do have one written communication item, which is a request from West Garden Grove Youth Baseball.
Ms. Palau is here to give the report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. The West Garden Grove Youth Baseball Organization is requesting City Council approval for co-sponsorship of their opening day parade on Saturday, February 10, 2018. Each year, the organization holds an opening day parade that includes baseball players and softball players in Garden Grove, the Garden Grove Unified School District School Board and school officials, Miss Garden Grove Court, and the local fire department, along with our city officials. Co-sponsorship for the 2018 opening day parade will have an impact on the city's general fund. The cost to provide police staff required to close city streets, rental of the showmobile stage, and public works staff to set up the stage is approximately a total cost of $2,500. Staff recommends that the City Council consider the West Garden Grove Youth Baseball Parade request for co-sponsorship of their opening day parade. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of staff? Comments?
I have a comment. Yeah, I'd like to strongly support this effort. I think this is Little League in West Garden Grove's legacy event. It's rich in West Grove's traditions of baseball. It brings back very fond memories for myself. My 3 boys went through the Little League, and I know a lot of families and friends and coaches, and it's been a great thing for our end of town. And I know the boys have a lot of fun. They learn a lot, sportsmanship. And so with that, I'd like to ask that the City Council support this motion. And I'll make the motion if I may.
I'd like to second it. Any other comments or call to vote? Call to vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Yes. Okay, we're now going to recess City Council and move on to successor agency. I'd like to call the successor agency meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you like to call roll?
Member O'Neill.
Here.
Member Chuha-Wen.
Here.
Member Bowie.
Here.
Member Klompenstein.
Here.
Member Kim Wen.
Here.
Vice Chair Beard.
Here.
And Chair Jones.
Here. Not much on here tonight, just a couple consent items, receive and file the minutes and approval of the warrants. Can I get a motion?
Move to, go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay.
Call the vote.
We were on successor, so. It should be up. Should be up there.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Any matters from agency members? Seeing none, we will adjourn back to City Council. Which brings us to consent items. It's recommended that items 4A through 4F be acted on simultaneously unless anyone would like to pull an item. Any requests to pull? Do I have a motion?
Second it.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, number 5, public hearings. We have 2 tonight, so 5A.
Item 5A is an amendment to Title IX of the Municipal Code to update the definitions, operating conditions, and development standards for the city's civic center mixed-use zoning districts with the introduction and first reading of an ordinance approving amendment number A021-2017, entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove approving amendment number A21-2017 to amend portions of chapters 9.04 definitions and 9.18 mixed-use regulations and development standards of Title IX of the City of Garden Grove Municipal Code pertaining to uses within the civic center mixed-use zones that involve entertainment and/or alcohol sales or consumption and permissible encroachments within setbacks. And Mr. Chung is here to give the staff report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you tonight is a transmittal of a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Council and a request that the City Council introduce and conduct the first reading of an ordinance approving amendment number A-021-2017 and to determine that the amendment is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. A-021-2017 is a city-initiated zoning text amendment to Title IX of the Municipal Code to update the definitions, operating conditions, and development standards pertaining to uses within the city's civic center mixed-use zoning districts that involve entertainment and/or alcohol sales or consumption, and permissible encroachments into the setbacks in the civic center mixed-use zoning districts. The proposed amendment would allow communal dining areas serving more than one business in which entertainment and/or other similar activities incidental to the primary activity of dining are provided, and where alcohol may be served and/or consumed in the CC1 Civic Center East and CC3 Civic Center Core mixed-use zones, subject to the approval of a conditional use permit. Additionally, proposed standards will require that the entertainment shall only be permitted within a confined space with proper sound attenuation, and that outdoor communal dining areas where alcohol is served or consumed must be located in a controlled area with monitored entrances and exits and enclosed by a perimeter barrier. The conditional use permit process will ensure that any use in the CC1 and CC3 zones involving entertainment and/or alcohol will be appropriately buffered from nearby residential uses and will not unreasonably interfere with the use and enjoyment of neighboring property. The exhibits available on your screen show the general areas of the civic center zones. This first exhibit shows the CC1 Civic Center East zoning district, which is generally comprised of properties located east of City Hall and north of Garden Grove Boulevard all the way to 9th Street. The second exhibit shows the general areas of the CC3 Civic Center Core zoning district north of Garden Grove Boulevard, which stretches westerly, slightly past Main Street, and slightly east of the Community Meeting Center. Also shown are the CC2 zone properties along Main Street at the bottom left corner. And the final exhibit shows the additional CC3 zoned properties south of Garden Grove Boulevard, which stretches along Century Boulevard and Euclid Street. The proposed amendment will also allow parking spaces and turning aisles to parking spaces to be located in required setbacks within the Civic Center mixed-use zoning districts and subject to site plan approval. This amendment will allow future developments to incorporate better site plan design, as well as increased visibility for the provision of adequate parking and pedestrian and vehicular access. Therefore, it is recommended that the City Council conduct a public hearing, determine that the ordinance is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, and introduce and conduct the first reading of the attached ordinance approving amendment number A-021-2017, which reads as follows. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Garden Grove approving amendment numbered A-021-2017 to amend portions of chapters 9.04 definitions and 9.18 mixed-use regulations and development standards of Title IX of the City of Garden Grove Municipal Code pertaining to uses within the Civic Center mixed-use zones that involve entertainment and/or alcohol sales or consumption and permissible encroachments within setbacks. This concludes staff's report, and we are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions of staff at this time?
I have a couple. Can you clarify for me and for the public, what does that mean by being exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act? You know, if we are exempt, what does that mean? If we are not exempt, what are we required to do?
This project is not subject to CEQA, to the California Environmental Quality Act. Any future projects would be at that time reviewed under CEQA, if it is exempt or not. This project alone, the amendment, is not subject to CEQA.
Yes, I understand that, but can you clarify for the public so that they can understand what do we mean by saying, you know, it's being exempt from, you know, the California Environmental Quality Act?
In a nutshell, it means that there's no environmental impacts expected of this project, of this amendment to the code.
Like they do not need to do the air quality study, impact the air quality or traffic, or what? Can you elaborate a little bit?
Okay, let me, if I may jump in.
Sure.
So under California law, when you have a project that makes physical changes to land, the environment, it impacts the environment one way or another. And state law requires that we present a study and a report to the decision maker about those physical impacts of the environment, so that the decision maker knows by approving a project what impacts that project may have. There are exceptions to CEQA, such as when you're approving, in this case, a programmatic type amendment. You're not approving any specific project, but you're approving a more general project that by itself doesn't mean that you will get specific projects unless you have a subsequent application. So because this is a programmatic document that, you know, we need to figure out down the line whether, you know, if we knew that this particular application or this particular amendment actually had any, you know, specific impacts to the environment, physical impacts to the city, to land, then we would have to do a study and identify. There's a list of items that we have to study and present to the City Council or Planning Commission before you approve a land use entitlement. The impacts relate to aesthetics. You know, you change the way the environment looks. Impacts to biological, whether you're displacing animals. Impacts to traffic, or actually it's more like, yeah, traffic would be an impact because it's related to air quality. If you create more traffic, then you have the potential, actually California says that you do impact air quality, and because of traffic impacts, then you also have to do an air quality study. You have to address impacts to requirements for utilities and facilities, whether you have to upsize sewers because you have more connections to a sewer system, whether you have to upsize water systems because you have more connections to the water system, demands on open space, parks, recreation, demands of public safety, whether it will increase demands on police and fire. So we do studies that the law requires whenever you actually have a new project that's being applied to a particular land use. So in this particular case, it's very broad amendment to the code. When we have applications that utilize these amendments, at that point we'll have to go through the state actually requires that we have a checklist of different impacts that we have to go through and identify whether there will be an impact to the environment or not. If there will be an impact, then we have to do two things. Number one, if we can identify a mitigation, we have to impose a mitigation on the project. And then if we don't have mitigation, we simply report that to you, and then you have to make a finding that you will approve the project notwithstanding the impacts to the environment, because the project brings more benefits to the community than the negative impacts that the project may bring. So that's CEQA in a nutshell.
Great, thank you. So what it is we are not sidestep or overlooking the environmental quality impact. We are just, we will address them when each individual project come to surface.
Correct.
Yes. Second question would be, we are making some amendment to the C1 and C3 as related to the mixed-use zone near the Civic Center. There are other mixed-use zones along Garden Grove Boulevard and in a couple other areas in city. Are they also being considered in the future for similar type of use like this one?
Yeah, at this time, this is only affecting the Civic Center zoning districts. In the future, we may look into that as projects come forward. Currently, this is only the Civic Center zones.
Is there any reason for us to concern that we might have to issue a similar use in other mixed-use districts, or we are not going to do that? And if we are setting a precedent here, is there any need for the council to concern about that ahead of time?
I think in the future, somebody could come to us, to the city, and request this type of amendment. This amendment here, part of it is to clean up what was already in the mixed-use zone. The CC1 zone already allowed some of this, and what it was to actually clean up and make it a little bit more clear and put in some additional code requirements for this type of use, because the CC zone, especially the CC3, and also, the one right next to us, those already envisioned these outside areas to have some entertainment as long as they were enclosed. But the way the code was written, it didn't really articulate it that well. So this is actually to make sure it's very clear. And in the future, if somebody came in one of the other mixed-use zones and wanted to do it, we would evaluate that at that time.
Right, so nothing, let's say if I would vote to approve this amendment today, is there any need for me to be concerned with that someone else along, at a later time come and request us to consider a similar use in another mixed-use area in a similar settings, that I would not feel that we already have a precedent, and so I would have to approve that, even though it may not, it may not have a wider acceptance from the residents.
You're not really setting a precedent if you approve this. I mean, it's already basically allowed in the downtown downtown areas. It's not going to preclude anybody in the future to come and request something very similar in one of the mixed-use zones, but it would be a code change to do that. So if somebody on Garden Grove Boulevard in one of the Garden Grove mixed-use zones wanted to propose a use, they would also have to come forward and amend it, and at that time, we would review it and as on the merits of that request.
Now, I understand, I am familiar with Main Street, downtown Main Street, which is a C3 zone, right?
It's the CC2.
CC2. So I understand that some entertainment are allowed there, but I was not aware of entertainment is allowed, surrounding the Civic Center area. Is that have always been allowed, entertainment there?
When we created the mixed-use zones, yes.
Okay. Okay, that's all the question I have.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing item, so we'll actually open it up for public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I know a lot of the business owners on Main Street, particularly the restaurants, have been trying for many years to get permission to have live entertainment, maybe a piano bar, a guitar player, or something like that. Now, is this regulation going to open things up so that they can set up something like that in their businesses? Also, Steelcraft is coming in, and I wonder if this is going to affect how they conduct business insofar as alcoholic beverages, and whether they'll be able to provide seating outside of their enclosed environment for people to consume alcohol. So maybe you can find the answer to those questions for me.
Thank you. Any other public speakers on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any other comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I second it.
Who made the motion? Staff.
Just to clarify, you're moving the
Amend.
staff recommendation to amend the Title IX?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
5B,
5B is an adoption of a resolution approving the issuance of bonds by the California Municipal Finance Authority as conduit financing for the Garden Grove Senior Apartments project located at 10080 and 10180 Garden Grove Boulevard in Garden Grove. And Mr. Robbins is here to give the staff report.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and members of council, we're here this evening to conduct a public hearing pursuant to the Federal Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, or TEFRA. TEFRA requires that a public hearing be held by the governing body of the jurisdiction in which a project to be financed with tax-exempt financing is located, and that the governing body approve the proposed financing. Garden Grove Pacific Associates LP proposes to obtain tax-exempt financing in an amount not to exceed $150 million to finance the acquisition, construction, improvement, and equipping of a senior multifamily rental housing project of up to 400 units located in Council District 3 at 10080 and 10180 Garden Grove Boulevard in Garden Grove, California, to be known as the Garden Grove Senior Apartments. The California Municipal Finance Authority, or CMFA, is a joint powers authority formed to assist local governments, nonprofit organizations, and businesses with the issuance of both taxable and tax-exempt debt. The debt to be issued by the CMFA will be the sole responsibility of the Garden Grove Pacific Associates LP, and the city will have no financial or legal obligations or responsibilities with regards to the repayment of the debt. All financing documents will carry disclaimers that the loan is not an obligation of the city. The city will also bear no cost in the issuance of the proposed debt. This is a private loan with the borrower and their bank. It is recommended that the City Council conduct a public hearing to receive and consider public comments and adopt a resolution approving the issuance of bonds by the CMFA for the benefit of Garden Grove Pacific Associates LP. Such adoption is solely for the purpose of satisfying the requirements of TEFRA, the code, and the California Government Code Section 6500. Council's adoption of a resolution approving tax-exempt financing is in no way an approval of the proposed project. The Garden Grove Senior Apartment Project will be presented before the Planning Commission and City Council before any potential actions are taken. And city staff, as well as a representative from the CMFA and AMG, the developer, can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Nate. Any questions of staff at this time? Seeing none, this is a public hearing item, so we'll open it up. Would you like to speak, or would anyone like to speak? You don't have to. Anyone like to speak or no? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I'll just comment, there's been a whole lot of legwork going on behind the scenes and a whole lot of meetings moving this thing forward, a lot of moving parts, a lot of variables, and it's exciting to see it finally taking shape and taking form. So I think we're heading in the right direction. Excited to see this item come before us. It's a first step towards getting a project going. And with that, I'd like to move it unless there's any other comments.
I'll second that.
Call the vote.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Okay, moving right through it. On to matters. We do have a listed discussion item as requested by City Council. I'm not sure exactly who, but just, you did that, okay. Sorry, it just said by City Council, so I didn't know. Discussion of theft and scavenging of recycling materials from residential garbage containers. Take it away. Garbage containers? Sorry, that was a tongue twister.
I'll start off. I know we're going to have a staff report on it, but I brought this forward because I had some citizens in my particular area, and throughout the years, I've had people ask me general questions about, well, what happens with, what do you do in a situation when somebody's scavenging through your trash? And also, too, I know we have an increase in the homeless population. I think that may have a bearing on this case, so I want to bring some information forward. But also, at this moment, I'd like to say, hope to continue this. I'm waiting on some more information. I have a citizen in my area who's researched this, and this information didn't get to me in time. So if I could extend this to another week, so maybe we could just talk in generalities about what we do as a city, what we have in the books, and then maybe continue this forward.
Is there going to be any kind of action item to take on this, or is it just sort of more?
There may be, in the sense that if we have the staff report, we'll see what the penalties are for this situation and potential plans on what we may do. But if we could go forward with the staff report, then we can, I think they can focus this in on.
Let me make a quick comment, too, before we do that. It's funny, but people don't realize that when people come and take recyclables out of your garbage containers, that's actually theft. Like, once it hits the garbage container, it's actually property of the recycling company, of the trash company, that has a contract with the city that takes those items and recycles them and gets value back for them, and that's all baked into their bids when they bid on the city contracts and stuff. So when people steal even individual smaller amounts collectively, it adds up to a theft loss to the trash company. So it's kind of a bizarre situation, but it's not only annoying, it's actually illegal. With that, I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. On October 24th, council requested a discussion item to be added to this meeting regarding the theft and scavenging of recycled materials from residential garbage containers. To assist with this discussion, I offer the following. Currently, the city has regulations under the Garden Grove Sanitary District Codes of Regulations which prohibit scavenging. These misdemeanor violations can be issued by both our police department or code enforcement officers. Council may prefer to use code enforcement officers to handle this issue, considering the workload of the police department at this particular point in time. One way to help our code enforcement officers would be to add the use of administrative citations to the Sanitary District Code on scavenging violations. This would require San District approval. Considering the options discussed, the issue of scavenging is difficult to address. The best thing for the residents to do is to place their garbage on the curb the morning of collection. While this will not prevent well-timed scavenging, it will mitigate prolonged evening scavenging and dumping of the garbage onto the pavement. City Council will need to consider the ability of code enforcement to adequately address these violations, considering they work daytime and the current workload that code has around the city.
This concludes the staff's report. I'm available should you have any questions.
Thank you. So where do we go from there? Any questions, or do you have something specifically you want to bring back on it?
No, yeah, well, here's some questions. Basically, so we have code enforcement, well, you have to catch the person in the act of doing it, correct? So I'm not suggesting we set up a task force to catch scavengers going out there, but if an officer or a code enforcement officer goes along and sees something like this, they have the ability to write a criminal citation that, under the ordinance?
Yes, currently, the ordinance only has criminal penalties.
And the max for those are?
The
whatever
maximum
set by-
penalty of a misdemeanor is up to $1,000 fine or 6 months in jail, or both the fine and the jail time.
Okay, so the average citizen can call up and say, hey, there's somebody in my neighborhood, they're scavenging through, the officer or the code enforcement officer. Code enforcement officer can also cite them for a criminal citation?
Yes.
So the other option you mentioned is an administrative citation. Is that a easier form of creating a civil or a penalty for them?
Administrative citations are civil citations, so there's no jail time associated with it, so the courts don't have to be involved. For criminal citations, it's basically a cite and release on own reconnaissance or on promise to appear in court at a later date. So normally when an officer issues a criminal citation, you're basically citing them to appear in court, normally about 30 to 45 days out. That citation is then filed with the court. Actually, it comes to my office and we file a misdemeanor complaint so that when the person appears in court, there is a complaint on file. And the case, it goes through a regular criminal process where there's an arraignment, then the case is set for trial, then there could be a trial if there is no disposition of the case by a plea bargain or someone pleading guilty at the time of the arraignment or the pretrial. On civil citations, you simply get a fine, and normally for misdemeanors, the fine is $1,000 fine. So they get a $1,000 fine, or the council or the sanitary district board can change the penalty to infractions so that the penalties, are 100, 200, 500 for first, second, and third violation within a 12-month period. And if they don't pay the fine, then we send it to collections. But it doesn't involve the courts, and sometimes, it creates a financial burden on individuals who are violating the code.
Which also serves potentially as a deterrent.
Correct.
More so than, okay.
And the other difference is that on a criminal side, if a person does not agree to show up in court, then the officer actually has to make the arrest and take him to court. So our code enforcement officers have the power of arrest, but not to actually seize a person, so they would have to call PD if the person is not willing to sign the promise to appear. Code enforcement officers actually have to call PD to actually handcuff and take him to the jail.
And then again, that's only if they catch them in the act.
Only if, yes, in our state and our country, you are innocent until proven guilty. So
Okay, let me write that
you
down.
have to be caught, and then 12 jurors have to find you guilty ultimately. On administrative fines, the officer that's perceiving or can actually issue the citation is different because there is no jail time. So that burden of proof is a little bit lower in that you can contest the fine in an administrative process, but ultimately you're never going to go to jail. You're just going to have to pay a fine. And you can contest that, and you have a due process that's a little bit different. The standard is a little bit. It's more like a civil type of case as opposed to a criminal case.
Okay.
I'll make a quick comment. I know in my neighborhood, we had that problem in my area, and the best deterrent was, putting the cans out in the morning, especially if you put all your recyclables in the recyclable container instead of your black container, so they're not going through your trash. I know a lot of my neighbors recycle before it even gets to the container. They take it themselves and get it recycled. So But it's good to get this out there and know that it is illegal. They can get fined. But I found the best deterrent is either pre-recycling, ahead of time, and then putting that green can out in the morning if you can. But I've actually had people, been out late and the cans were out there the night before, and I've just asked the person, please don't go through my trash cans, and they'll move along. And usually my neighbors do the same. And but it can be a problem. I had one lady one time that would religiously drive her car from house to house, going both directions down the street, and she almost hit parked cars as she's going down, and I'm like, oh no, But I just say, please do not go through my can, or I put it out in the morning, and keep the recyclables all in one container and take that out last. It's kind of a self-policing thing, but it's good to know, the public to know that it is illegal and they can get fined for going through your trash.
I agree. I just don't want to see resources, especially with our police, used on something when they're so needed in other areas.
Well, go ahead.
No, please.
Not to debate, because I don't think it is. I'm just thinking of administrative citation as another tool in the toolbox for the police to have, not to go out there, and like I said, I wouldn't see a task force set up and set out patrols specifically for scavenging, but I think if we have that at hand as an administrative citation, we also have the ability to give the police and code enforcement maybe an easier option of citing somebody on the spot, more than a criminal process or criminal penalties related to it.
I hear what you're saying, but if really quickly, I think though it's so case by case, because I think it depends on how aggressive that scavenger might potentially be. I know some neighborhoods, they scavenge and they leave the trash everywhere, and I know that can be an issue. However, the ones in my neighborhood, they come by, they grab a few things, and they're on their way. They're not leaving the litter. So again, I think it's just being careful. Is this a case by case basis type of a thing? How can we mitigate that without, like I said, draining resources and bringing in potentially a tax code enforcement, a tax police force into this issue? And I hear what you say about the administrative angle, but.
And I hear what you're saying too, but regardless of, if they see a crime, they see a crime. I mean, it's either administrative citation or it's a criminal penalty, one of the two. So I'm not saying this is, I don't see the dramatic strain on resources. It's just, like I say, putting another tool in the toolbox for law enforcement or code enforcement. So I have a quick question too related to, is Garden Grove Disposal, are they involved with having to, if it's a criminal prosecution, do they have to be involved? Or if the citation, the violation's seen, witnessed by the police or code enforcement, the citation's issued, is Garden Grove Disposal involved because it's actually their contents inside the trash container outside the street?
They're not involved because they're not they don't have the authority to adopt laws, rules, and enforce them.
And they don't have the ability to. What I'm saying is they can't say, oh, forget about it. It's just our stuff. Let them take it. We're not going to prosecute it. Do they have any ability as the owners of the property to say, we don't want to press charges? There's no pressing charges in the situation. Is that correct?
I mean, they could if they actually witness, if they witness and if they're, I think that if they're losing sufficient, I have seen situations where the hauler could take someone to court, but it's normally other haulers that are stealing the trash.
Yeah, okay.
So it has to be institutionalized before they actually take action as a private citizen enforcing their private contractual rights.
Okay. Let me rephrase the question. What I'm asking is, we see them, we cite them, somebody, scavenger, takes some stuff. The trash company, Garden Grove Disposal, has no way of saying, oh, we don't want to press charges. They're not involved with anything like that, are they?
No. So, no, if our code enforcement officers or our witnesses witness the information, the crime, and are able to testify in court, then we don't need the hauler to do that for us.
They're not involved. They're not a party involved.
Correct.
And we also, on the books, we have a litter a provision that if they litter, that's a penalty as well, right? They dig into the trash, they create a whole sort of mess, and that's also a part of the ordinance, the existing ordinance, correct?
Yes, it is. There is state law with respects to littering, streets and highways. Our ordinances actually apply to the property owners. So it would be pretty interesting that, if we find litter and we cite the property owner when it was not their fault, that the litter is there.
Yeah, well, Okay, and I think I know the answer to the question, but I have to ask it. If somebody gets onto your property, goes to your trash can container without your permission, obviously that's, we call the police, that's a 911 situation, somebody's stealing stuff off of my property.
When you say my property, you mean behind the fence?
Yeah. It's
Yes,
on the side of the
that's a
house, they
trespass.
roll it out, trash day, they roll, but in between that, I've had one instance, a citizen complained, there's an aggressive scavenger in her area, and they go straight into their trash directly on their property and at their home.
Yes,
So
that-
that situation, you do call the police, they do come out as a crime.
But most of the trash can would be placed on the sidewalk, which is a city property, not the.
Correct, but, yes, but Councilmember Beer is talking about people going at people's houses, not on the public right-of-way, but actually going to your backyard.
A few years ago, when I was planning commissioner, some people come and scavenge through my trash bin, and I talked to the city about it. And I think the answer that I was given then is, even if I allow them to take the, recycled material, I, as the property owner, are not allowed to do it because it is considered city property, not my personal property. Is that true?
So the regulation, the sanitary district regulation says that when you put it in the trash can and out for collection, it becomes the property of the trash hauler.
I see. So once I put it in the trash can,
Yes.
it's no longer my property.
Correct.
It belongs to the city and the garbage collection company, in this case, Republic.
Correct. You can choose not to put it in the trash can and, it's still your property.
Okay.
Even if the can is in your backyard?
Well, if it's in your backyard, you haven't put out for collection,
Okay,
so it's
well,
still
I just wanted
yours.
to clarify the way.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand, that's the way I'd understand it.
see.
Once it's on the street, yeah, but
Correct.
if it's in the can on your own property, it's still your property.
Still your property.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Most of the people that I see, every now and then, some people come through our home and try to collect that. And I talked to a few of them. Sometimes they are homeless people. Other times they are people who are trying to collect them and sell them so that they make profit for, not for their own, but for the church or for the temple. And a lot of them are doing that. And the church and the temple are very, encourage a lot of residents to, instead of putting in the trash can, but collect them and drive them to church and donate it so that they have a means to get a few more dollars for the church or the temple to operate. So I don't know, I don't see how we can, whether we want to really go aggressively against all of them or just on case by case, on depend on the situation.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Go for it.
I just want to bring up these points. It's for education of the public, for my own edification. But also, too, if I could make a motion to continue this to the next meeting, I want to get some more information related to other cities and ordinance and such. So would that require a motion to move it forward to the next council meeting? Further discussion?
Yeah, you can move that.
Okay,
to
I'll make that
continue.
motion. I'd like to continue this matter to the next meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Call to vote. So we'll bring it back under matters again at the next meeting.
And, Mr. Mayor, members of council, just to be sure, is some specific pieces of information that you'd like staff to come back with at the next meeting?
Well, if you can provide information on other cities in close proximity, just generally.
Yeah, thank you. We'll
Sure.
be prepared.
Would there be any voting item? Because if
Well,
there's
possibly,
anything to
because-
vote on, then we need to schedule it that way.
Well, this is an action item now, so if I continue on, I want to continue on as an action item.
Oh, it's an action item to vote on approving something or just discussion?
It gives us that flexibility and ability to, say we decide we want to direct staff to prepare something related to administrative citations. would be example, that'd be an action item.
But right now,
But
we're
then
just
I-
voting
yeah.
on more information.
Correct.
Yeah.
To
More
continue the matter
information,
for
right?
further discussion as an actionable item at the next meeting.
What?
Do you want
I
us
think
to
it would have to be-
agendize it? Do you want us to agendize it as a sanitary district matter? Or leave it as a city council discussion item?
Well, ultimately, we
No,
have to vote for it under that.
what I don't, what I don't understand is before I vote, I want to know whether I'm voting for just a discussion or an action item where I have to vote to approve or disapprove it.
So at the last council meeting, the council unanimously agreed to put it on the agenda. So when the city council as a whole agrees to agendize an item, it's agendized as a discussion with action. So you give yourself the opportunity to take action on any discussion that comes, decision that comes out of the discussion. So that's why it's an action item in case anything came up from this report. But there is no specific action that's being requested at this time.
And, for Mayor Pro Tem Bowie, I think that was a point of why I wanted to get some clarification too, because it'll be, I think what the staff's expectation is to provide another similar information report, just like we did today. We're not recommending anything, we're not proposing anything, we're just going to be bringing back information about what some other cities are doing.
No, okay. So in other words, no action will be taken at the next council meeting regarding this subject. We just discuss and staff will just give us some more
Right.
information.
Right.
Go for it.
Motion received, 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Any matters from council members?
Starting with me?
Go for it.
Okay, I want to wish Councilman O'Neill a happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And with that, I also want to wish everyone, since it's coming up next week, is a happy Thanksgiving to one and all. I think Mr. Mitchell said it very well, that we should give thanks and have reflection, give blessings and appreciation of what we do have. We're in difficult times, so I think it's a good time to sit back, reflect, be with your family, enjoy the holiday. So with that, a happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Yeah, me too. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Stay safe if you're traveling and just enjoy the time with your family.
Well, happy birthday, Councilman John O'Neill. I would like to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I'm thankful for all the for your help, for your support, the City Council to make our work, us work for you, and happy safe travel. Spend a good time with your family. Thank you.
A couple of things. Happy early birthday, John, and wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving next week. And I'd like to share some exciting news. Big kudos to Garden Grove's Animal Care Services. If most of you know, and if you don't know, you're about to find out. I'm clearly an obsessive dog mom, and I've recently experienced a couple of partially semi-scary emergency situations in which I had the idea. I mean, I didn't cornerstone or copyright this idea, but I've seen it around where individuals will have stickers to indicate that they have pets inside their homes. And so I had a discussion with Animal Care Services and suggested that perhaps we provide stickers to our residents. And lucky for me, Animal Care Services is very fantastic, and they jumped up on the idea. And so now we have Garden Grove issued pet decals and hopefully stickers soon to pass out to our residents so that they can indicate that they have a pet. There's a dog, cat, bird, and or other that you can cross out. You can provide the number of animals you have, also an emergency number in case there is an emergency you need to be contacted. So just great kudos to Animal Care Services for caring about our Garden Grove animals.
I'll just make it brief. Obviously, early happy birthday, Councilmember O'Neill. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. And quickly, City Manager, if possible, just to clarify, we are having the short-term rental discussion from staff at the next council meeting.
Yeah, Councilman Kloppenstein,
Yeah.
just to clarify that, and I was speaking to some of our speakers here tonight. Our understanding is it would probably work better for a lot of the folks that are interested in this topic if we had the discussion at our first meeting in December.
Very good.
So
Okay.
we are preparing for that on December 14th, I think, is our...
12th.
12th, December 12th, where we will bring forward information about how the community can get involved in short-term rentals and that discussion, regardless of what their position might be on it. So we're shooting for December 12th for that discussion.
Very good. I'll make sure that, I know I have a lot of residents that contact me about this issue quite frequently, so I will definitely reach out to them and ask them to please attend. I know it's December, it's a busy time, but this is an issue that's kind of a hot button one at this time, and I would ask my fellow council members too, if you've had people reach out to you, to please have them attend this meeting. It'd be great to just have a really good discussion and have them hear the staff's report. Thank you.
Happy birthday, John. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Time really go by so fast. I cannot imagine yet another year just go by, in a blink of the eyes. And Thanksgiving coming up, and Christmas is just around the corner. With Thanksgiving, I would like to, today, reminding of that, I think of my close friend, Mr. Frank Garcia, the man who I admire so much for his heart. Frank Garcia is a man who championed the notion that we should give thanks to everyone, especially to the less privileged. And for the last, I think this is probably the 19th years, he organized the We Give Thanks Turkey for everyone. And he do that every year for the last 19 years at the Honda Center. I've been so busy, Frank, I forgot to look you up and ask if you need my help again this year. But I will call him and volunteer. I encourage you to reach out to the We Give Thanks Foundation to see if you can help. There are close to 20,000 people come to the We Give Thanks to help and to celebrate Thanksgiving together. It is in a weekend, and I'm not sure whether it's coming up this weekend or the weekend of the next. But if you go to wegivethanks.org, or look in the newspaper, you will find it. And hopefully I will see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. A few things. So we do not have any closed session items, so when we adjourn, we're actually done. We won't be coming back. Happy birthday to John O'Neill. We will be having a cake celebration ceremony, so you're all welcome to come enjoy some cake with us as we sing happy birthday to John right after this. And the only other thing I want to note is just to congratulate our very first ever Vietnamese Miss Garden Grove, Sarah Bowie, who won the pageant on Saturday evening. So congratulations to her. I've never met her in person yet. I look forward to doing so. I'm sure we'll spend a lot of time together at events over the next year while she's in there. But I'm quite sure we'll hit it off because we both share master's degrees from USC. So we've got a common bond. Would also like to congratulate Sophie Nesseri, who was Ms. Garden Grove's outstanding teen. So congratulations to them. Also congratulations to Julie Diep, who heads up OC Autism. They had a big banquet over the weekend. She was in danger of letting that nonprofit go this year just due to struggles trying to keep it going. And I'm glad to see that she did do the banquet and she pulled it off. I hope she keeps it together, and I hope we continue to support her efforts. She's got a wonderful amount of passion and enthusiasm within that space and has done wonders for a lot of children and families affected by autism, and we hope we can keep her in business to continue doing that in the future. And with that, any comments from City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, just a couple. If my notes were correct, February 10th is going to be a busy day because that morning and afternoon is when the West Garden Grove baseball festivities will begin, and then the Americana Award that they spoke about is that evening. So February 10th is the day. I wanted to mention, since it was Veterans Day over the past weekend, I had the pleasure of stopping by our Elks Lodge. They hosted the Bob Hope USO Carnival Festival for all of our active military, and it was really a wonderful event. It was their second year that they've had that at the Elks, and I think it's been a great partnership for them, and I think they appreciated Garden Grove stepping up and being one of the cities that hosted their one of their USO Bob Hope events for our veterans, so that was nice. And then the final thing I wanted to mention, Thursday, Lisa Kim and her economic development staff have been actually nominated by the Orange County Business Council for 2 awards. The Orange County Business Council has their annual Red Carpet Awards ceremony. They recognize cities that are doing things. Lisa and her team are being recognized for their partnership with Wesley Village, that was mentioned, and also for their outreach work with the import-export community and helping to help our businesses that are involved in importing, exporting. There's a lot of companies in our West Garden Grove Industrial Park that they're working with and doing things along those lines. So they've been recognized for those efforts. So congratulations to them, whether they win or lose, and we'll be there cheering them on Thursday night. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. With that, we will adjourn and go. Please come and join us for cake.